Hi and welcome to this episode of Walk the Wu Wei. Today we're going to be talking all about dealing with rejection. So whether that's believing you've been rejected or worrying about being rejected in your relationships, when dealing with family members, with your peers, or even professionally in your career, hopefully this video will give you lots of practical advice and tips. We know through working with our clients every week, they come to us giving us all the painful feelings they're experiencing to do with rejection. They feel like they're a failure. They feel like they're not good enough. They're being pushed away. They've done something wrong. And we're here to tell you that this is not the case. In this video, we're going to explain the real truth about rejection and how you can deal with it.
And the real truth, it's a lie. You cannot be rejected.
Yeah.
You cannot be rejected.
Yeah. So, David, in terms of rejection, practical experiences, it can either be something major, so an unexpected breakup in a relationship, your partner leaves unexpectedly, you may have been with them for 10, 20, 30 odd years.
Has an affair.
Or it could be something relatively minor. So believing that someone is criticizing you, saying you're not good enough, whether it's at work or a friend, and you feel like you've been rejected. So we get all these uncomfortable red light feelings of inadequacy, not good enough, being mistreated, being betrayed, all these things that our clients tell us. And that a lot of the time, they blame themselves. It's something wrong with me. It's my fault that this happened. What's the truth about what's going on here, David?
Yeah, I want to say it one more time. You cannot be rejected. Right. So, as Alex just said, this is what you hear. I feel like I've been rejected. There are no feelings called rejection. Rejection creates a feeling. Now, please don't think I'm being pedantic. I'm being absolutely serious. If you believe or think you can or have been rejected, that will create what we call a red light feeling. So acknowledge the red light feelings. Remember what I've told you on many, many videos. Don't use the F word. Instead of saying, I feel like I've been rejected or I feel like I'm being rejected, I think, I choose, I believe. Okay, so first of all, I think I've been rejected. Okay, so then my next question is why? Now we're on the golden thread. See what we've just done? We've separated and parked the feelings. We've acknowledged them. We're not denying them. We're not saying they're not real. We're not saying they're not intense. But we said we don't want to go round and around on the feelings. Now you say, well, I think I've been rejected. So why do you think you've been rejected? Now we're going down the golden thread. Now we're going to find the core of the problem.
Well, David, I mean, I can say to you, say as an example, I don't believe I've been rejected. I know I've been rejected. Okay. My partner of 20 years last week walked out on me. Okay. That's not, it's not a figment of my imagination.
And you believe he walked out on you because one day he woke up and he said, I am superior to you, so therefore I am going to reject you.
Well, he doesn't want to be with me.
That's
he wants to be with someone else.
Exactly.
And therefore I can't be good enough, surely.
No, let's just do your first bit and we'll do your second bit. So therefore, you're absolutely right. Rejection is a choice. You're right. He has chosen to be with someone else. That's his choice. Haven't we all got choice? Don't you want choice? Don't you want to choose your life direction? And I'm very sorry for you, but if he's chosen that his life journey will be better with someone else or in another country or doing something else, then shouldn't he really do what is right for him? Do you want him to stay with you?
No, of course not. Of course not. But I still feel bad about it because I feel like it's a personal slight on me.
Well, it's not a personal slight on you. He's made a choice.
Yeah.
And it's quite right that that's upsetting because maybe he hasn't told you that he was considering this, or maybe he's gone behind your back, or maybe he's been having an affair. But all of that is a reflection on him and not you.
Okay.
Because you have honored your relationship. You have been doing what you believe to be right. He's the one that's gone behind your back. He's the one that hasn't acted with integrity. He's the one that's lied and cheated and give you false promises. So that's for him. Why would you want to take on his problems? Now, it's quite all right, and you should be upset because your expectations of your life together, perhaps you've been together for 20 years, 30 years, is now going to change. That's right. I understand that that's going to be a bit upsetting. I do not expect you to walk around and whistle a happy tune. I expect you to be a little bit upset, a little bit disorientated, a little bit angry, a little bit frustrated. But that is just passing. Do not blame yourself because there is no blame to laden on you. Why would you want to put the blame on you?
And also, would you say there's no blame on them either? It's just a choice.
The only blame on them is there's no blame on them making a choice because here's the key to this. You must agree that all human beings have choice. Let me give you a for instance before I answer Alex's question. If you have a son or a daughter and they came to you and they say, Mum, I'm in this marriage, or Dad, I'm in this marriage. I've been in there for 3 years and I'm very unhappy. Very unhappy. I don't like I've made a big mistake. I really, every day I'm hating the relationship and I want to get it sorted out before we have children or before we make a bigger commitment. Would you say to them, sorry, darling, you've got no choice. You've signed up. You've got to stick with it. And you can't leave her or him because then they'll be rejected and that will be your fault. You've got to stick with this now the rest of your life. You wouldn't say that. What you would say is you've got to act honorably. You've got to act with integrity. You've got to go and speak to your partner and discuss with them what it is you're experiencing so that they have a chance to, because they might agree with you. They might go, thank goodness, I've been thinking the same. Let's separate. Or they may not think that. But if you don't go and speak to them, then that's the dishonesty. You have got choice, but it's then the grace and the authenticity and the truthfulness. You deal with the outcome of those choices. So the problem is, in your case, is your husband didn't have the authenticity to come to you, the integrity to come to you, the truth to come to you and say, I'm falling out of love with you.
And have that prior conversation.
Exactly.
So I guess what you're saying then, it's not about blaming yourself.
Why would you blame yourself?
It's not necessarily about blaming the other person either, although, you know, you can have, depending on circumstances, they could have acted better. You both could have communicated more. So it's not about apportioning blame, certainly not about blaming yourself. And you mentioned expectations. I think for some people, if they have an expectation that things are going to always be this way or things will be a certain way, and it turns out that the other person steps in and changes everything or does something you're not expecting, then not to turn it in on yourself and blame yourself.
But I don't know why you would do that, you see, because
but a lot of people do that.
They do, but it's not logical thinking, because the problem is, and I don't want to move the subject off rejection, but now we're talking about relationships, and relationships is about the ability to relate, because no relationship stays like that. There's twists and turns, there's different areas, different time periods going through the life, and the strength of a relationship is the ability to relate, to talk to each other. And that's one of the most difficult things with any relationship. But let's not get onto that subject. Let's go back to rejection. If the person hasn't been able to relate and to communicate with you, then I'm very sorry about that. But I still don't know why you would go to the place where he is rejecting me. Because even the concept, if you think about that rejection, that's a hierarchical position. Why do you put him that he can reject you?
The power to kind of say yes or no about who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So going to expectations, it is quite reasonable when you're in a relationship, you have shared expectations.
Yeah.
That's why you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
You're living your life together, you're sharing your life, you're sharing your goals, you're working together. But it's also equally okay if somebody has a change of mind, has another choice. The problem is they should tell you, or you should tell them. You should say, you know, what we were going to do, I don't know whether that's right for me now. And most people will not do that because it's too uncomfortable. It's too painful to go to the person that you've had a relationship and to explain to them that your feelings, your thoughts towards them, towards your future together is changing. So rather than do that, they will go and deceive you. That's where the problem is.
Yeah.
But it's nothing about rejecting you.
And what about if the source of the perceived rejection is, say, from childhood, where you believe that a parent or both parents preferred another sibling over you, or that they didn't like you, or they criticized you, and that because of those childhood situations, you still believe you've been rejected. How do you deal with that? Because we talked about a current relationship type situation. Yeah. How do you deal with perceived rejection that's gone on in the past?
Well, I would do the golden thread again and go down. And if it's what Alex has just described, I believe my perception is my parents didn't love me. They preferred my siblings. I was the last in the family. They didn't love me. They didn't give me the attention. Then it's a big jump to say that they rejected me. I mean, what we're talking about here is really poor parenting skills. This is nothing about rejection. What do you think about they sat on the kitchen table and said, well, look at her, we're going to reject her? Yeah. They probably didn't have the parenting skills or the will or the method, or they didn't have the wherewithal to love you in the way that you wanted to be loved. But that also doesn't mean that you are rejected, like you're thrown to one side. And even if you was, so let's go to the extreme. Even if that's true, even if they believe you wasn't worth nothing, does that make that true? Does that make that correct? What they perceived in their dysfunctional way, does it make it true? Of course it doesn't. And the evidence is here, you watching this, because guess what? You survived all of that. You survived all of that trauma and that upset. You survived it. And that's proof to me that you are awesome. And because somebody else doesn't think it, really, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Because the most important thing is for you to believe it for yourself. And this is what happens in childhood. In childhood, quite rightly, we look externally. We look externally for reassurance, for validation, for love, for everything we get. Now, if we don't get that, it's not about us. It really isn't. You wouldn't go to a child and say, oh, look at you, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, we're going to reject you. It's not about the child, it's about the parents and the journey that they're going through and their ability and their integrity and their parenting skills. And to be honest, the way they love themselves, this is normally the case. Don't turn it onto yourself. This is not a rejection of you. It cannot be a rejection of you. Even the word doesn't make sense. How can they reject you? They can choose not to love you. I'm even going to the extremes for you. They can choose to think you're awful. That's not a rejection. That's just their choice. Very poor choice because you proved them wrong. But that means you're not rejected. You can't be rejected. One human being cannot reject another human being. We all have choice and we can all make choices, but that is not a rejection. You can make a choice now as you're watching this video. If you switch off, you haven't rejected me. You've made a choice. And I respect your choice.
And you don't believe you've been rejected
I don't believe I've been rejected. I believe then if you say, well, what I'm saying you don't want to listen to. But I would still say it with integrity, with honesty, with truthfulness, with all, because I believe it. I believe it. So if you don't believe it, that's how I accept that. Because if I love and respect you, I have to accept your choices. May not agree with them, but I have to accept them. Because if I want choice in my life, I have to give you choice. And that to me is the core here. You either believe in choice or you don't believe in choice. Now, if you believe in choice, which I'm sure you do, then surely everyone has choice. You can't just say, well, yes, I can have choice and everybody else can have choice as long as they agree with my choice.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is I can choose not to have that person as a friend or not to have that person a partner. But if they choose not to have me as a friend or as a partner, I can't then feel I'm rejected, feel like I've been wrong, feel like I'm a failure, because it's a nonsense.
It's a dual belief system. It's a dual belief system. So let me go over that again. If you believe that human beings, we have choice, can we choose? So you can choose, then surely somebody else has got to choose. You cannot say, I can choose, but you can only choose what I think is right. That doesn't make sense.
Okay.
And I'm going to manipulate you, because if you don't agree with my choices, I'm going to be deeply hurt and say you've rejected me. That's a manipulation. I want you to have choice. You make your free choice. And that really is what we're talking about. We're not talking about rejection here. We're talking about the ability, and I believe this is spiritual, to make free choices, to take responsibility for ourselves and for our lives. And we should be able to do that with integrity, with honesty, and be authentic. We should be able to communicate truthfully, and we should be able to tell people, especially those people we're in relationships with, where we are if it affects them. And we should be able to have that communication.
I think, David, at the root of this issue is self-love or lack of self-love.
It is.
Because you talked about hierarchy and putting someone over you in importance, whether that's your partner, ex-partner, whether it's your parents, things that's happened to you in the past where you believe you've been rejected by someone in the past or now, or you're worrying about being rejected by people in the future. That fear, that red light feeling, comes from the belief that you're not good enough, you're not lovable, and that if they don't want to be with you, if they make the choice not to be with you, it's because you're not good enough, and that you're depending on them, whether it's a parent, whether it's a partner now, whether it's a friend now, whether it's a future partner, to tell you you're good enough, and if they don't, that's the rejection. So a lot of this comes down to self-love. If you truly love yourself and believe you're good enough, believe you're worthy of love and can give yourself that self-love, then if someone makes the choice to not be with you, that will not affect you. I mean, in the moment it may hurt you, but you're not left with a lasting feeling of rejection.
Exactly, because you honour their choice, and you're absolutely right. This will always come down to taking the responsibility to love yourself, not to doubt yourself. Because if you're constantly looking for validation, external love, remember I've said in many videos, it's like needing oxygen. It's like having an oxygen mask, but somebody else has got their hand on the control. And you have to keep pleasing them. You have to placate them. You have to make sure that they're happy because you're worried in case they turn the oxygen off. Love is not that at all. That is a misunderstanding. Love is something that you can create for yourself. Even the concept of not loving yourself, think about it. After this video, just think about that concept. How could you not love you? What part of you, I say this on lots of videos, what part of you doesn't love what part of you? Is it your mind not loving your nose? Is it your mind not loving your big toe? Is it your mind not loving your face? What is it that your mind is superior and what is inferior? What is actually happening, and this is why all the stuff that we do on the Wu Wei channel is spiritual, because what's actually happening here is your mind rejecting your spirit. your Shen. It's your mind saying that I am more powerful. I don't need that part of you that's divine, that's awesome, that's amazing. I can do without it. And you can't. And this is really the work. Forget about rejection. Forget about pleasing other people. Forget about what other people say to you. It's of no importance. Think about what you say about yourself. Take responsibility. This is why this is so important. Alex is absolutely right. Just think about the three lies we talk about. I'm not good enough. What part of you thinks what part of you is not good enough? I can't cope. Look at all the things you've done. If this was you and your child, look how well you've coped. I'm unlovable. I have no value. What part of you thinks what part of you has no value? This is nonsensical. You're creating a dual belief system that you hop backwards and forwards. Would you say to your child, if your child come home from school and said, Mom, Dad, I really tried in my maths exam today and I only got 6 out of 10. Would you say to your child, well, that's because you're not good enough? Of course you wouldn't. Then why would you say to yourself, you've got to stop this? This is a nonsense. You've got to stop it now.
Yeah. And if you don't stop it, if you don't stop these lies, these beliefs in your core beliefs, they end up, you at all costs, you want to avoid this experience of rejection. So you start to do all these emotional strategies that our clients come to us with, people pleasing, pushing people away, trying to be perfect, then thinking, well, I can't be perfect, so I might as well give up. And then they don't take self-responsibility. So it all gets really, really complicated.
That we call the maze of confusion.
I mean, we've done a video on this and I'll put a link to it on codependency and love addiction and kind of creating these messed up, manipulative situations with people because you're trying to hide and run away from this self-doubt, this fear of being rejected. And actually, it's very simple.
Very simple. It's very so simple. You love yourself. You choose to be with somebody because you want to, and you allow them to choose to be with you because they want to.
Yeah.
If they don't want to be with you, then I'm going to tell you they should not be with you. They should be on their life course. Why would you want anybody in your life that doesn't want to be there? Why would we want anybody watching these videos who really do not want to watch them? This is a choice, and I respect your choice. That's why I love you. If I love you, I have to give you this ability to choose. If you love someone, they choose to be with you because they love you. This is now a wholesome relationship. This is a relationship where you can both work together with mutual trust because you're not dependent, you're not looking externally. This almost like what they're loving you, wanting to be with you, is a cherry on top of a beautiful cake. And this is why it's so important to get this right. And this is why I really dislike these rejection ideas that I hear quite often because they're part of the confusion. This is very confusing, and this is when you're stuck in the maze, as Alex says. I want to be perfect. If I was just perfect, if I was the right size,
everyone would want to be with me.
Exactly. Everybody would love me, wouldn't they? I wouldn't lord it over anyone, but everybody would love me. And I walked into the room, they go, oh, here comes so-and-so. She's fantastic. This is not reality. Whatever you do, some people are going to love it. Some people are not going to love it. And that's life. And we have to respect that. And I absolutely respect that. And if you don't respect that, then what you're trying to do, I'm sorry to use this word, I think this word is really powerful. You are trying to manipulate them. Don't manipulate people. Take that responsibility for yourself. Love yourself. You cannot reject yourself, although a lot of my clients do try and reject themselves. How crazy is this? This is all smoke and mirrors. Stop it. Clear all the smoke and mirrors back. Clear all of the confusion. Step out of your maze. Why don't you love yourself? What is it about you that you can't be bothered to love? And then if you can't love yourself, how on earth do you expect other people to love what you can't be bothered to love? This is a misunderstanding. Love is not external coming into you. Love is internal flowing out from you. It's got to start from you and flow out. This is very simple spirituality. This is you loving yourself so it can flow out, like when we get on an aeroplane and they say, put the mask on you first and then put the mask on somebody you're caring for. Love yourself first and then you can love those in your family and who you care for.
And I think, David, you know, another thing I want to talk about is if what you have been strategizing so hard not to happen is rejection, if the person, whether it's your husband, your wife, your partner, the boss of the business you go for, the job interview for, whether your friends fall out with you, if they make the choice not to be with you, we always see that as a negative. Whether we blame ourselves or not, we see it as a negative. But I mean, I know you've said this before, David, and I want you to explain this. The spiritual teaching on rejection or not is you can't be rejected. It's about being redirected.
That's exactly right. You're being redirected. So if somebody's choosing not to be with you, and they won't even tell you why they don't want to be with you, then I would say that they're doing you the greatest favor. I would honor them. I'd buy them a drink and I would say, you're doing me the greatest favor because I'm getting someone out of my life who actually doesn't want to be here. That gives me more space. That gives me more direction. That allows me to flow. You're actually being redirected onto your path. And your path should be about honoring yourself, loving yourself, having people around you that want to be with you and you want to be with them. So they're actually doing you the greatest favor. If it's a friend, if it's a job. You know, I've sat on employment panels and we haven't given a person a job because we don't think they're suitable for the job or the job is too little for them. We just did it a few years ago where a person comes highly qualified, but we said, he's overqualified for this job. So, you know, finding the balance, trusting people, allowing yourself to be redirected, but taking responsibility for that direction. So do not have anybody in your life. Don't hold on to them. Don't manipulate them. Don't people please them. Don't be worried about what they're saying. Allow them to be there because they truly want to be there. That's going to mean that sometimes they won't agree with you. Sometimes they'll have a different opinion. And that's the strength of the relationship. So you can sit down quietly and discuss where you're coming from. And then you know what? That makes the relationship stronger because two people are wanting to be together and they see a benefit in being together. It's like two horses pulling a carriage. You don't want the horses pulling in opposition to each other. You want them pulling in the same direction. But you've got to make sure the one horse can pull the carriage by itself anyway. So take responsibility for yourself. You can pull your carriage fine without somebody else. And if they don't want to be with there, I would send them love and I would say, thank you for being honest with me. And if you don't want to be with me, I wish you well on the people you do want to be with me, who you do want to be with. And this is not rejection. This is simply choice.
I think if you can move the faulty core beliefs out the way that, oh, they've made this choice because I'm not good enough. You know, I can't manage, I can't cope, I'm not worthy. If you can move those faulty beliefs out the way, which cloud your judgment, skew your judgment, then if someone does make that choice, whether it's to do with your personal life, family life, career, you can look at what's happened with a fresh pair of eyes. You can take the learning from it. You can take it as feedback, but constructively. You know, you can say, well, where did I go wrong here? Was there something better I could do? Rather than saying, oh, it's all about me, or it's all about them, or I'm not good enough. You can actually move on positively with new learning, with fresh insight. But you can only do that if you get rid of the lies that you're telling yourself.
And you use a great word there, and that's what the lies do. They cloud up your decision making. They put you in the maze of confusion, smoke and mirrors. and you get lost in your own maze. And this is why these words, such as being rejected, is just, it really is a toxic word, a toxic thought that just gets you into the maze of confusion. You cannot be rejected. It's impossible, because to be rejected, you have to believe that there is a hierarchical system and you're somehow higher or lower than someone else. And that's just not right. That goes against the idea of oneness, you know, and it starts, as we've said 2 or 3 times, with believing in yourself. Cut out all of this nonsense of self-doubt, of not loving yourself, of can't being bothered, of believing it comes from external, of wanting somebody else, manipulating, pleasing them. You want choice, don't you? You want to choose. If you want to choose, give that to other people so they can choose. And you'll be surprised. Your life will change immensely, because it's almost like you're letting go of a big weight. Imagine your life now. Could you just imagine that? Where you can just be yourself. Yeah. And you allow other people to be themselves. Yeah. And if they want to be with you and you want to be with them, great. Because imagine it the other way around. Imagine you didn't want to be with someone, but you were tied into them because they told you, if you leave them, I'm going to be rejected and kill myself. What would that be like for you? You'd be stuck with that person the rest of your life. And this is why you've got to think clearly, clear the fog, think clearly, take responsibility for yourself, get your intention clear, and give that choice to other people as well.
And also, it's about, I guess, allowing the choices, trusting yourself that you will manage, trusting that you will learn positive things from this situation, no matter how painful it may be in that moment, because we're not denying sometimes big relationship breakups, big changes in your life will affect you, will cause you red light feelings, but it's moving on positively. And then almost trusting the universe, putting it over to the universe, trusting just to let go and let's see what happens here, rather than jumping in and trying to manipulate and strategize and get all your ducks lined up again. Trusting that sometimes the ducks need to go in a different direction.
And I know we're coming towards the end now, but just let me give you this, just to think about it. Sit quietly and think about all of those times when what you were expecting rather, didn't work out. And look back now and say, wasn't that for the best? How many times have you said that? At the time, it was devastating, full of red lights, crying, going to bed, having too much to drink for a few days or a week. But when you look back on them, you say, my goodness, I'm really pleased that happened, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have been redirected to here. Yeah. And that's what you've got to see. These are just incidences on your life journey as you flow. You can't stop them. You can't stop these difficulties happening. You can't be future-proof to make sure that everything works out exactly the way that suits you, that you don't get any emotional harm or upset. The roses grow round the door, the bunny rabbits jump in the field. We live in a utopia. Everybody's happy with each other, no disagreements. Everybody's doing what you think is fair and right. This is not reality. And so learn your lesson and just take that responsibility for yourself and stop this nonsense about rejection. Just stop it, because this is what confusing matters. As Alex said a few moments ago, this is about taking responsibility, loving yourself, nurturing yourself, what the Chinese call Qiang, nurturing yourself, honoring yourself, living with integrity, following your intention, following your life journey. This is your responsibility.
And when you do that, you're honoring yourself. Instead of worrying about other people rejecting you and rejecting your own needs and authentic path because of all that manipulation, you start to honor yourself. You start to love yourself, and Wu Wei happens.
And then you're in your Wu Wei, and it's like you've dropped the anchor, and you're lighter, and you just close your eyes for a second and imagine, see yourself walking free, not looking for anybody else, not needing anybody else? Don't you walk taller? Don't you feel lighter? Don't you breathe deeper? Isn't your mind clearer? And this is who you are. If you clear out all that fog and just focus and keep it very simple. You know, sometimes I think this work is too easy. It's the mind that complicates it. Don't make it complicated. It should be very easy.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, David. So if this teaching resonated with you, if you have struggled in the past or you're struggling with the concept of rejection, please tell us, share with us. Add your comments and questions below. And as always, you know, we'll always be very happy to feedback and answer any queries you have. And we look forward to seeing you very soon. Bye-bye.